And without much further ado, I just want to give a little shout out here to, before I even introduce him, to Andres Mata, because I first met Andres 2 years ago. We were talking about almost 3 years ago at the Kansas Service and Civic Engagement Conference in February of 2020, when he was presenting about his work as a student. So just before the COVID craziness. And so anyway, it's wonderful to see Andres here now as a graduate and continuing his good work in community engagement. And so we want to give him this opportunity to share about his work and the Kansas Civic Network. So I'm going to hand it over to Andres. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Meredith. And thank you, everyone, for participating in today's conference. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so let's get started. So again, my organization that I created and launched really, February 2020, late February, really, that's when we started. It's called the Kansas Civic Network, and our slogan is creating tomorrow's community leaders. So a little bit about me, I graduated from Salina South and then went through Heston, Bethel, and then ended up getting my undergraduate degree from Bethlehem College in Lynchburg. I've been involved in almost 15 years in politics and in public service in one way or another, and serving in different capacities. I had the honor of serving on the Salina Human Relations Commission and also the Planning Commission. So if you ever been to Salina, I've heard of the Salina downtown, the revitalization, I'm honored and privileged to say that I had a seat at the table making those decisions, be at the table, which was really interesting and really, from a different perspective into policy making and serving the community, different lens of working with others to make things happen. And so, in center of Kansas, so that's pretty cool. Our mission statement, before I dive into all this, let me give you some, backdrop as to why we created the Kansas Civic Network. As being, I have always been the youngest in the room, and whether it's the city commission meetings or just our community meetings in general. And I saw that as an issue, as a problem that needed to be fixed right away, because, young people, not necessarily were tuning out, but they were not being engaged. And so that was really important for me to create an outlet for young people, particularly in rural Kansas, to have that outlet. And then the second takeaway was that, it's not right or wrong. It's just the way it is. Eastern Kansas has a monopoly or grip on resources that, everything Western Salina, those resources are very scarce and very, not typical barriers that you don't see are predominantly here in rural Kansas show up. Things like, the typical stereotype of young people is like, you got to wait your turn, or, in rural living, it's mostly those stereotypes or stigmas of, it's not your time, wait your turn. And also the, it's very typical to have, your experts. And so it's really hard there's a barrier to overcome when being involved in those spaces as a young person. And so our mission, understanding the impact of what we're trying to accomplish and understanding the environment. And so our mission statement is to create an equal, respectful, and robust conversation about the issues currently facing communities in Kansas. So essentially, be really equal on, who's being represented. Representation is everything. And when you turn on your city commission or your county commission, who's being represented. Respectful is really centered around, here, uh, especially in this climate, this day and age, has been really uh, difficult to have a respectful, just, to remove the politics from is almost nearly impossible, because, folks are on the other side are passionate and, emotion and very emotional uh, topics really come up, and, and really lose out on that quality conversation. It's easier to type, out on social media and not have a uh, that authority or responsibility to have an in-person conversation. And so that's what we created. Our vision is really uh, providing the community opportunities. And so what you'll see is how we're doing that in rural Kansas. And so really, we're based here in Lindsborg, population 3,700. And so that gives you an idea of who we're working with. We have friends throughout the state. However, we really, want to uplift the rural communities that we serve. Um, and like I said, it's very important and critical to have folks from every walk of life, regardless of party or beyond party affiliation, but, social economic status, all those demographics, really to encourage a civic dialogue. And, you know, and it's not, when you hear civic engagement, for us, it's really a holistic approach, not necessarily like, yes, voting is important, but there's more to voting and civic engagement throughout. So that gives you a little uh, taste of what, you know, from an organizational standpoint, what we're trying to accomplish. And core values, we have three: community, passion, and public service. And community, rural living, everyone knows everyone, uh, or vice versa. You might have, it's when you say it's a small world, it's literally a small world that you will never know who you run into. And so we really stress the community, the tight knit community, whether it be a Lindsborg, Hayes, or even Salina. Um, really stress where we're at and what we're trying to do and accomplish. Passion, really, part of the reason I started this organization is that recognizing that there's a lot of passion among young people here in the western part of the state that are really, you know, passionate about giving back to the community one way or another. And that's one of the things that, we capitalize on the human capital aspect. Um, and so we remove those barriers to have access so for those. And then finally, public service. It's not just running for office or being an elected official. We really break it down to the core level and giving it service, giving back to the community. And so we do all those, and so that what drives us to make an impact in our communities. And a little bit about our team. We have, when we first started, I was wearing all the hats, and now it has we have expanded about 25 members of our team. 6 counties are represented, and from an organizational standpoint, we have an active footprint in 5 counties uh, here in the state, and we're all under the age of 40 and multicultural, so and rural too. And so that again, underlining and underscoring that impact and what it means for us to be uh, a rural-based organization that typically get often overlooked in conversations. One of the things that really uh, impacted me in my undergraduate career was, the lack of an internship in Topeka. It didn't make sense for me. It didn't, feasibly, it didn't make sense for me to drive out 3 hours for an internship. And so that kind of inspired me, what can we do here in our own backyard that, you know, that will similarly translate into an experience. And so that's what we do. We provide a platform for those folks, typically that don't have the accessibility to have an internship, whereas KU or a K State student would go on in 20 minutes or less, get an internship at the Capitol. Trying to replicate or provide the opportunity. And we're working with a lot of our partners, as you'll see here, who we're working with, and we're all majority of our team members are still in college, and so and these are folks who were active before I reached out to them, but this is more formal and again harnessing that electricity and passion, putting it all in one, really has been incredible. And we're talking to city managers, hire folks, that create, you know, that fill in each, everyone has a role in this, whether it be a city manager or city administrator, or the president of a college, and everyone in between. And so that's really remarkable. That's been receptive thus far. And we do this. And so once we have a policy area, so we focus our work on food insecurity, criminal justice, housing, immigration, healthcare, education, economic development, and voting. And so when it came down to this, because we could have a list lasting 100 or more topics that we could cover, but when our team came together and narrowed down, our focus is, what basically came to three things. One, are these issues relevant in a rural community? And are they reasonable, which means, and realistic? Can we do things around this topic that could actually move the needle? Not trying to solve the whole world, but doing our part out here, and making sure that folks are, and getting involved and engaging the folks that need to be engaged, whether it's food insecurity, or even voting. We have folks involved in each of these areas. And so for our academic platform, we chose what's called the civic footprint. And, this was this was a paper written by Shearer, McDougall, and Handy in 2014 by the University of Pennsylvania, centered around nonprofits. And they promoted, one of the things that we, adopted was the civic footprint, and civic engagement through programs that engage volunteers and donors, bring community members together, collaborate with organizations beyond the community, and promote education and awareness. And so I want to highlight that third point, collaborating with organizations beyond the community. Typically we have seen organizations have this mentality that, that become so competitive, or, a lot of overlap. And, when we go into Great Bend or Hayes or any other community, we want to be seen as a collaborator, not a competitor. And, I often refer to it as, having more houses or less houses, more boats. So what that means is, when you have a house, you have all these walls. And when you're on a boat, everyone's on the same boat, and it's more free to have conversation and collaboration. And so that removes those barriers from collaborating or from having that conversation about, what can we do to move the needle right here in our community. And that gives you a little bit of our impact, a little bit of everything, working with whether it be a school district in Salina, Saline County, um, or even here at Bethany College. We have had conversations with virtually everyone, from city administrator to community member. Right now, as you'll see, we're working with, uh, you know, community stakeholders in Salina and McPherson to create an impact in the community. The Salina House and Community event was a grant that we received by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment as part of their pandemic and vaccine equity program. And the McPherson County volunteers, establishing a volunteer hub right here in McPherson County. And so, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're harnessing and capitalizing on the, it's kind of like Shark Tank. If you've seen the show, they usually add on, not really reinventing anything, is really complementing the work that's already been done or will be doing in the county. And so that's one of the things that we do is, we pour gasoline on the greatness of communities and amplify them and maximize them. And so, for example, right here in McPherson County, what we found was that McPherson County residents are traveling to Hutchinson just to volunteer. And when you think of, McPherson County has 5 school districts, 4 colleges, or higher ed institutions, and United Way, all these community anchors, yet no one has figured out how to make a volunteer system work. And so when we were asked and we were brought into the conversation, like, how do we get structure added to this? And so that's one thing, again, not reinventing the wheel or anything or nothing, too complicated, just these simple things that really mean a lot right here in our communities.